Kansas City Commission meeting. Shayla, may we please have a roll call?
Mayor Ryan,
Here.
Commissioner Miller,
Present.
Commissioner Witt,
Present.
Commissioner Kohoff,
Here.
Commissioner Meisenberg.
Present.
Roll call's complete.
Okay, please stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and our next item is approval of the agenda for today's meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
I'll second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Do we have any further commission discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Vice Mayor Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Witt,
Yes.
Commissioner Koloff.
Aye.
Commissioner Meisenberg,
Yes.
myself, yes, motion carries. Next item is the consent agenda, which consists of the meeting minutes for the July 22nd, 2024 regular meeting.
I move to approve the consent agenda as written.
I'll second that.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Do we have any further commission discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Witt,
Yes.
Commissioner Koloff.
Aye.
Commissioner Meisenberg,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller,
Yes.
myself, yes, motion carries. The next item is 6A, public comments and communications under that, which is a public forum. If there's anyone that would like to address the commission on an item that's not currently on our agenda, is there anyone that would like to do so? Is it currently on our agenda, Hank? Okay,
Present your challenge.
yeah. State your name and
My name's Hank Royer. Been here in Abilene for 76 years. Served in many different roles on city boards and so forth. One of them was the Economic Development Council. I was a charter member on that. Here for 24 years. I was chairman of it many times. We had no budget incidentally for that. But we did all right. We got Russell Stovers and Briartons and Great Plains and 3 apartment complexes and 2 housing developments. We did okay. But throughout that time, we learned that we had to get by and save money. We tried to save money for the taxpayers. I just brought you a couple examples I'll touch on here. One of them was the depot. I happened to be the chairman of that committee. We saved the depot. We got an architect to come in. He said it's going to cost us $350,000 to make that place habitable and make it usable. Between November of '86 and January of '87, we figured out there's no way we're going to come up with $350,000. My committee agreed to raise $55,000 if the city had come up with another $55,000, and we self-contracted it. We took the architect's plans. John Heyer and I were the general contractors for it. We hired it done. We did not use a consultant. We didn't pay all those fees. Every nickel of that project was spent here in Abilene with tradesmen here. We bought all the materials here in Abilene. We didn't spend a nickel out of town. Had that gone the way the architect had in mind, it would have gone to bids. Some company in Salina or Junction or something would have got it. Every dollar would have left town. We would have spent $350,000. We did it for the city, putting in $55,000. A year or two later, a street project came up in Abilene, Bowman and Associates. I got that attached here. They said that my block, the post office blocks, which had several voids under it, had boilers out there. On the south side, we had basement entrances with the metal things laying over the top. None of them were handicapped accessible. They came in with this plan and they said for only $233,952.92, they could remedy that problem, and they'd put a few trees in it too for us. We knew that couldn't be done. The building owners, Terry Teachins, myself, Stu Etherington, and Marcella Steinhauser, worked with the city again. He wanted $292,000 to do it. You can see what we actually paid, $24,800 to do the exact same project, less than 10% of what the Bowman consultants said it should cost, and be bid out to God knows where. Every penny of that project was spent with local people. We got it done for less than 10%. Again, John Heyer and I self-contracted it, and Mike Weaver did the work. The city actually only paid for the light poles down there. We paid for all the sidewalk. We raised it up to grade on the south side, so all of them are handicapped accessible. We covered all the voids, filled in the boilers, did it all for less than 10%. What I'm trying to say is I would challenge you as you have projects come up, think about doing it with local people. The money stays in Abilene. You've got people here qualified that can be general contractors and do it for you. You don't have to take this consultant's estimate, go out, bid it to somebody in Kansas City or God knows where that'll come back and do it for about 10 times what we could do it locally. So I challenge you to try and be cost effective in the future as you have projects come up. It can be done. And Mike Whitehair did Sterl Hall. He was with the county. They got a bid on it and they couldn't afford it. So Mike Whitehair did the same thing out there with the county. They self-contracted it. And as I recall, they did it for about a third of what they said it should cost. And then we got the exact same project. It was local people used, and we didn't have to pay those god-awful fees and things that the consultant came up with. So think about that going forward. I just challenge you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's not even start with that. Do we have anyone else that would like to address the commission on an item that's not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move into first business item 7A, considering approval of resolution number 081224-1, a resolution fixing a time in place to appear to show cause why the structure at 1601 West First Street should not be condemned and ordered repaired or demolished. City Inspector Stearman.
Hello, basically, not much has changed since I've had no contact with Roger with this with that building. What I did get a bid, like a rough estimate of what it would cost to have that building tore down without going into in depth how much of basement is there and how much is crawl space, but I got a bid for 60 to 70,000, which is quite a steep number. Like I said, I've been trying to get him to fix that building, and this is kind of the last, maybe the city can get something resolved to get him to do something with the building. He pulled permits, like I said, but no work has commenced.
Quick question here. Why are we looking at demo instead of just boarding it up?
It's a dangerous structure. It's classified as that. It's not a structure that's safe anymore. So if it's labeled as a dangerous structure, that's when we go after with a demo, or we have to fix the property to make it not dangerous anymore.
I mean, it's a concrete block building. It's not like it's falling down. The structure is not unsound. It's just that the roof is open, correct?
And that can be your opinion, John. I'm not saying it's what I'm saying is what I've looked at and what I've seen with the holes in the roof and that being damaged, it can be a collapse.
So it's your opinion that because there's a hole in the roof, the concrete block building is likely to collapse.
The roof could collapse, yeah, in my opinion.
But the risk is just that somebody would be in there when the roof would collapse.
I don't know if that would necessarily be the only risk involved with that.
What is what is it if it's not a dangerous structure? What is it if we just need to board up the windows and doors? I know we've done that on a couple of properties throughout the city.
Well, the problem would be that it wouldn't meet that definition in our adopted codes that the city adopted. It wouldn't meet the definition of not a dangerous structure. If it was just as simple as boarding it up, it would have been done.
Do you have a time in mind or date and time in mind for that hearing?
It would be
Yeah, it looks like,
following our policy.
yeah, and the resolution prepared for us, we got September 23rd. So-
I honestly believe if we can get him with a deadline, a city imposed deadline, and then it would be up to, we could ask Aaron if you could possibly have some sort of a citation if he didn't follow it, and then, or it would just go to where you bid to demolition it. That's this worked for 214 Cottage.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah,
why I'm
sorry, I
hoping-
I
that's
missed the
why-
date in that
That's why
resolution.
I'm hoping this works for 1601 West First. I don't want to have the burden of the taxpayers to pay for the demolition of this building, no.
Yep, and so what we have in front of us is just voting on having that hearing date,
Mhm.
second meeting in September.
And I don't, some of you were commissioners then. We had the same kind of a situation on the Southwest Second Street house that had a fire, had a drug lab in it and had a fire and stuff. And we posed some, and she was able to fix that up and get it to where, and so, something like that. If we could get, that's our ultimate goal, but I'm out of tools to get it there. This has been a 5-year process at least. This.
Do you have any further questions for City Inspector Stearman?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution number 081224-1.
I'll second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Do we have any further commission discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to roll call vote. Commissioner Koloff,
Nay.
Commissioner Meisenberg,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Witt,
Yes.
myself, yes, motion carries. Our next item is 7B, consider approval of a bid from Valor Automotive in the amount of $63,130 for the purchase of 2 police department vehicles and a bid from KCOM for the removal and installation of equipment in the vehicles in the amount of $21,031.22. Total cost of $84,161.22. Police Chief Hatter.
Mayor, I'll take this one.
Okay, City Manager Marsh.
Anna is on funeral leave this week, so I will take this for her. And basically, you were informed of this last 2 weeks ago at the last meeting. Valor Automotive had the low bid of $63,130. That includes our trade-ins. And with the installation of equipment for police vehicle of $21,031.22 from KCOM at total cost of $84,161.22.
Have any questions for city staff on that?
I'll move to approve the bid from Valor Automotive in the amount of $63,130 for the purchase of 2 police department vehicles and a bid from KCOM for the removal and installation of equipment in the vehicles in the amount of $21,031.22.
I'll second that.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Do we have any further commission discussion? Seeing none, would a roll call vote? Commissioner Meisenberg,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Witt,
Yes.
Commissioner Koloff,
Nay.
myself, yes, motion carries. Next item is 7C, consider approval of a master agreement work order with Olson Engineering on the scope of services stormwater drainage study in the amount of $18,160. Public Works Director Anderson or City Manager Marsh?
I'll take this again, Mayor. Commissioners, this was the master work agreement to do the study for the area bounded by Charles Road on the north, Brady Street on the east, Old US Highway 40 on the south, and North Olive Street on the west. And this is just a study to find a long-term solution for the drainage problem there. The cost is $18,160, and that'll come from the Stormwater Drainage Fund.
And just a reminder, that was the diagram that had the two separate routes for routing that stormwater drainage. Do we have any further questions for city staff?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the master agreement work order with Olson Engineering for the scope of services stormwater drainage study in the amount of $18,160.
I'll second that.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Do we have any further commission discussion?
Yes, just a little bit here. Well, I do think this is important work. I would like to put this out for bid. Olson has been going on a 13-year evergreen contract. This should be, their contract should have been renewed 3 years ago. I think it comes up next year. And I don't believe we're under any obligation to use them exclusively, and I would propose that we put this out to bid. So I'll be voting no on this. And I would encourage you to do the same.
Do we have any further commission discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to roll call vote. Vice Mayor Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Witt,
Yes.
Commissioner Koloff,
Nay.
Commissioner Meisenberg,
Yes.
myself, yes, motion carries. Our next item is 7D, consider approval of a design option for the 2025 City Connecting Link Improvement Program, C-CLIP project number 021-U-2504-1 Union Pacific Railroad to Fifth Street, with recommended comments from KDOT engineers during the on-site walkthrough. Public Works Director Anderson.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Brad Anderson, Public Works Director. Commissioners, this is a project design proposal to move forward with the KDOT C-CLIP surface preservation of K15/Buckeye from the UP Railroad to North Fifth. The agreement to participate in this project was approved by City Commission on February 12th, 2024. At the regular meeting, it was signed and it was sent to KDOT. The design proposed is provided in your packet and includes KDOT recommended engineering comments. This design proposal will be in kind and will consist of 2 traffic lanes each direction of travel, along with parallel parking between 3rd and 4th Street in the downtown areas. Alternatively, you can look at another option that would remove parking on the west side of Buckeye and make it a loading zone to reduce traffic lane blockages. Project construction will call for a mill and a 2-inch overlay of the traveling surface, along with ADA compliant sidewalk improvements, curbing and striping. Roadway alignment and entrance locations to individual properties will be discussed specifically with the property owners directly affected by the recommended engineering comments. Drainage design and structures are in the budget to replace, as we have done on the other C-CLIP projects. The cost estimate was high level with no design effort completed for the application. If determined to be in the correct location and still good and in condition, they will remain in place. If they are determined to be in bad condition or after review, they will be replaced. Sewer pipe replacement is not included in the budget. Only replacement of the storm sewer inlets as found necessary. We recommend that you approve the design option proposed with your packet with the recommended comments from the KDOT engineers during the walkthrough project on the site walkthrough. And KDOT, of course, will fund 90% of the eligible cost of construction up to $400,000 as outlined in the agreement. And I believe you were supplied both a plan, set of maps, and a engineer's opinion of probable cost.
Big questions at this time for Brad.
Yeah. Do we have the option to just do the mill and overlay?
I believe we do have the option to do just the mill and overlay. I'm questioning whether or not, I guess I don't know, that the comments being funded by the way they're funded, why we're doing the project, we would do them, so.
Well, I'm just a little concerned that we've already got the cart before the horse, because for some reason we have a $150,000 contract signed with the aforementioned Olson Engineering to do $1 million project when we don't know that $1 million project is necessary. There's been absolutely no engineering to determine if there is an issue with those drainage structures. There's been no engineering to determine if we replace the engineering or those drainage structures, if it'll actually help anything anyway. And so I don't see any reason to go through this whole charade. Let's just do the mill and overlay that KDOT said they'll pay for and just leave all this other stuff. I mean, I'm looking at, I'm not even sure. What I will tell you is I'm pretty sure that if a construction company gets a bid and says, hey, we get paid more if we replace these, they're probably going to go in and replace them, or they're going to start whacking them with the jackhammer until they're so bad that they need to be replaced. So the only thing that I'm going to vote for is a mill and overlay that's paid for by the grant that we got from KDOT.
Okay. Yeah, that's a discussion for you all to have. What other things you want to add with the recommendations from the KDOT engineers? So yeah.
Do we have any other thoughts from the commission on that?
Okay.
Yep, if you've got public comment, you can come up to the mic. You've got 3 minutes and just state your name.
Didn't understand everything. James Price, well, we rent property there in the affected area. Talked about removing parking on the west side of Buckeye and using it for a loading zone, but I didn't understand just where. Where do you go? Hold on. You said something about eliminating parking on the west side of Buckeye.
So generally, that's just we're not talking about the mill and overlay or the surface. We're talking about striping options for marking out when you have. So that can be looked at, honestly. I know we've had some situations where we have trucks that have parked in the roadway, but that's all in design phase. Like, once again, totally up to you if that's something you want to entertain.
So that would be a design phase discussion.
That's correct.
Talking to the business owner.
That's correct.
Figuring out
It's,
what makes
it's
the most
nothing
sense.
that,
Thank you.
I use my 3 minutes, but I think let everybody else in the room wants to talk too. But first of all, the parking, I don't think you really addressed it, Brad. The thing that came out for this meeting said an alternative was to eliminate the parking on the west side of Buckeye. This whole thing started out with the theory that they needed more parking. And all of a sudden, we've got an option that removes the parking they got. They told you it was adequate. And I don't know why you'd even consider that, but that's the way I understood it. I just saw it today. It's the first time I saw this. The other thing I would mention, the most expensive part of this is the sidewalks. And down in my area, my block down there, I can tell you, I can save you some money because my sidewalk is smooth as a baby's butt. And you don't need to touch it. It's in here being replaced. There's no need to replace my sidewalk, my north-south sidewalk. Yes, I know you've got to put those rubber things at the end so somebody knows if they're getting into the handicapped area to get to the street. I know that. The way it's drawn here, now that we were told at the last meeting where most of these people were here, that these are not butt outs. I mean, it's not out. This is just sidewalk, right, that we're talking about on here. You're not putting any of those jut outs, right? Bulb outs, yeah, bulb outs. There's none of them on there, right?
seeing highlighted is sidewalk.
Sidewalk, okay, just wanted to clarify that. The last thing I'd say that I really think is ridiculous, quite candidly. If you look in the 400 block, because it's been there for 50 years and you got a nice wide street, all of a sudden there's talk about realigning it with the north side and losing 5 feet of your street, which then requires you to tear out that entire curb, the whole block to get a straight line there. And that's a large part of your project, is to tear all that curb out, lose part of the driving surface you got just to line it up with the north side, which isn't hurting a thing right now. And that seems to me to be the biggest waste of this whole project, is to do all that, to tear out something that's okay right now. You can, do your resurfacing and don't tear out a good curb, and we don't need another 5 feet of sidewalk up there on North 4th Street. I can tell you that. And if you do the sidewalks, just happened to have brought that thing earlier. If you make it a separate thing, since all the expense for the sidewalk is on the city, it's all on you. You can go out and get bids for that. And I guarantee you can get it done for probably at least a third, maybe less than a third of what is in these numbers. You can go out and get local contractors to put those sidewalks in for you. You don't have to go with these estimates and go to some Mutt and Joe that are out here doing it like they did on South Buckeye You can use local people and you can get it done probably for a third of what they've got in this. So if you just resurface it and then bid out the sidewalks, if you're going to pay for them, which is fine, we paid for ours, but if you're going to pay for them, that's great. But bid it out and do it local, for crying out loud. Don't put it out in this package that the people that come in here did the wonderful things for you on South Buckeye can do it on North Buckeye. You spend the money in Abilene with Abilene people. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else that would like to address this item? Just please come up to the podium and state your name and address.
My name's Hank Royer.
Diane Miller, 1601 North Jayhawk. I'm the property owner on that block that they're talking about extending the sidewalks out further into the street. And we are perfectly fine with leaving it just the way it is and just resurfacing Buckeye. And I've spoken to my son and his wife who now own the business there. And they also their preference is to leave it like it is. That those sidewalks were replaced or partially replaced 10 years ago in that block. And we redid part of the parking lot at the same time. It's still in pretty good shape. I also would like to address the stoplight issue. It sounded like the comments that came from the audience the last time we met were in favor of replacing the stoplights at this time, even though there is nothing wrong with the stoplights, because possibly KDOT could order them to be removed. I personally don't want to argue with that point. I just don't see that they would come into a city. And I looked on their website to try to find their guidelines, and I couldn't find anything about stoplights. And I understand that the standards have changed, but usually when you have to follow those new standards is when you are replacing the lights because there's something wrong with them. And there again, we put new stoplights in on that corner when I was on the commission. I know that's been a while ago, but as far as I know that they're still functioning. And even though if you ever had to replace them, you'd have to redo sidewalk, I still think that at this time, our money is better spent on street maintenance because we're getting some dirt roads here in town where we're supposed to have streets.
Quick question to city manager, point of clarification. So what we're talking about again here today is concept. And a part of this concept, that intersection with the stoplights is not in scope.
Correct. We took the stoplight. We're just going to pave right through Third Street. We're not going to, right past Third Street. We're not going to mess with the intersection at all.
I'm Sabrina Holland with SK Designs, and I wanted to state, not real fond of the whole loading zone on the west side. I have probably 3 or 4 times a week deliveries coming in, and yes, we have to have all of our deliveries through the front door, but I'm generally there between 7:30 and 10:30 in the morning when our deliveries come in. So it's a short amount of time for just, a few hours max. So I don't feel like we need to take all that parking away. So I know it's just a concept that we're just talking about right now, but just wanted to put that in front of you too, so that you understood. We are not able to bring any freight in through our alley anymore because the gas services came in and brought in all of the gas meters in 18 inches on both sides. So it already took that access away from me. So the front door is all I've got. So just so information. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else who would like to speak? State your name and address.
My name is Danny Meisenberg, 809 St. Michael's. Everybody in this room knows what needs to be done downtown Abilene, those sidewalks in front of True Value. I went to the go get stamps this morning and tripped. I think if anybody's been down that sidewalk, you probably have tripped. The sidewalks need help. Something has to happen there. As far as the curb and guttering goes, took a good look at it this morning. It looks good. it can still make it. I think the highway does need an overlay. There's no doubt about it. I think they need to leave M&M Tire alone. That thing's worked for them for years. And like Diane said, they've poured new concrete 10 years ago. It looks good. Between 3rd and 4th Street, that's what you guys got to concentrate, I think, on is the sidewalks and the gutter. It just needs a little help. But the sidewalk between 3rd and 4th on True Values, it needs help. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else that would like to address the commission?
I'm speaking on behalf of Debbie Davis. She owns a property at 401 North Buckeye and 105 Northeast 4th. I will just back up what Diana said and what Danny has said. We do have a question. At 105 Northeast 4th, that is basically Davis Tire and Auto's only entrance in order to get cars in and out. And that will be completely shut down during all of this, that whole entrance on that 4th Street side.
Shouldn't be on 4th Street. There should still be access from 4th.
Okay, so he would still be able to get in and out on that 4th Street side. It's just.
Brad, correct me if I'm wrong, but this should just be limited to Buckeye. Okay.
And then at the 401 North Buckeye where Donut Palace is, are they going to have one entrance in there as well?
You should still have that entrance on the 4th
Okay.
Street access.
Now that entrance on the 4th Street access, is that going to be, are they going to always just have one way in and out? Or is it going to be open back up to the way it is currently after construction is finished?
Not
Looking
sure.
at this map, it says remove entrance and fix radius on 4th Street, right in front of Donut Palace.
So they'll be removing that whole entire entrance.
That's what's proposed on the design in front of me right now.
Okay, and I mean, our thoughts is that will cripple that business if we close that entrance there.
Ma'am, we will meet with every business owner
Okay.
individually before we do anything. Brad and the engineer and I, we will make sure we meet individually with every business owner affected and go over all the details. And if it doesn't make sense to take it out, we're not going to take it out.
Okay, I'm just asking too, because supposedly city commissioners were going around today and no one came into the business, either one of those businesses today. So we just want to make sure that the business owners, property owners are left in the loop during the whole thing. Okay, thank you.
Just to kind of add on there, it looks like it's also proposed to remove the entrance to the gas station on 5th Street, which then puts the only entrance and exit 60 feet away from Buckeye on 5th Street, which I think is kind of ridiculous for a convenience business.
Point of clarification to the city manager, the notes captured on there, those are KDOT notes. Those are just things that they've noticed. Those are not necessarily things that are going to happen.
Correct.
Do we have anyone else that would like to address the commission? Okay. Please state your name and address for us.
Susan Roberts. I have Buckeye Antiques down on 310 North Buckeye. I'm going to back up what Sabrina said, that 3rd to 4th there. Less than a month ago, you want to give us the extra parking. Now you have the absurdity to go and take out all our parking. As a commissions, I implore you all, as he had said, we're going to come and talk to city people. Just like the last problem that we had, that you're going to go ahead and go to angle parking, the angst that when our city people were just upset terrible. I'm here to tell you, as Sabrina, I'm on there every day. You guys need to come in and talk to each of the business owners. That, like I said a month ago, like Hank said, you want to give us parking, now you want to take it all. Sabrina is the only business that has any unloading there. I have a few antique dealers that come in, they park, take a few boxes in. But when you take my parking away, I might as well close the doors. Because we're not going to have them trucks sitting out there all day. All we're going to have is no parking. So the people that are driving by, do I want to take a circle around? No, I'm going to go on down the road. So I implore you to take a look at this. And this alternative, in my opinion, needs more common sense. This is what the problem is. When we do this liberty to the flag, Justice is to the people. Justice is to the business owners and the community. And that you guys are the ones who have to have the common sense. Yes, it's just a proposal, but, or an alternative. When we get these KDOT people in here, that's what your jobs are, is to look at what common sense is. And I implore you to go and talk to people before you get the angst up. I thank you for listening to me, but I do my best to bring business into town, not take it away from here. And that's what I ask you to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else that would like to address the commission? Yeah. Seeing none, do we have any additional questions for staff on this item?
I just want to be clear about what the design proposal is that we're approving or being asked to approve today.
What's your question?
What is the design proposal that we're being asked to approve today?
Mill and overlay. Fixing stormwater drainage gutters as needed, fixing sidewalks as needed. Fixing any entrances that do not go with KDOT requirements as needed.
So we don't have a visual representation of that. Is that correct?
There's a 30,000 foot visual right in front of you.
This is what you're talking about. I'm going to make a motion that we approve the mill and overlay and look at a separate action for the sorry, I just lost my agenda here. We take separate action for the sidewalks that I think, listening to the people who are gathered here, seriously need to be replaced. Sidewalks don't need to be a part of this project. We've got the money for the mill and the overlay. Let's do the mill and the overlay. I don't think that there's any reason to replace drainage structures or even make a proposal to replace drainage structures when we don't know that there's an issue with the drainage structures. That's what I would propose. Mill and overlay.
Okay.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion has been moved and seconded. Do we have any further commission discussion? I'll give you my personal opinion. I think the smartest thing we can do while we have the entire road tore up is to plan ahead and actually fix any stormwater drainage issues that we find, fix any sidewalk issues that we find, fix any entrance issues that we find, fix any curb and guttering that we find. We don't know that we will. We don't know that there will be much, if any, changes at all. But while we're tearing up the road, we might as well look to the future and fix it for the long term, not the short term.
I don't disagree with you, but I think before we approve anything, we need to know that there is an issue. We need to know that there is something that needs to be fixed, and we need to know that doing that will actually fix it. I don't think we're gonna put $1 million out here for this project and say, yes, we're going to do this. And then I don't think we're gonna have the answers. There's not gonna be any direct oversight into that process. I think your contractors are gonna say, yeah, this one's screwed up. There's a dent here. There's a ding here. They're gonna replace every single thing that's in this theoretical proposal. If we want to do it, let's do it right. Spend the time, do the engineering. Has anyone even crawled in the gutters to know what's down there? I understand that there's a drainage issue. Don't get me wrong. I understand there's a drainage issue, but does fixing the boxes that the water falls into fix that? The water is always going to go downhill. I'm sure there's probably 100 years of leaves and who knows what else in there that we could probably clean out and improve our drainage situation down there. Changing those boxes isn't going to fix it. And I'll be happy to be wrong after the engineering shows that.
I think that's an important piece too, is we're in the design process. We're not in the engineering process. So that will all be discovered during the actual engineering process. We don't fully engineer projects just to send them to KDOT and hope for approval. That would be a massive waste of time, money, manpower, et cetera.
That's what we're doing. We've created this. They've said, hey, you're going to get a mill and overlay. That's all. That's what their project is for a mill and overlay. They said that's what they're going to pay for. It's us. It's our engineers that have come up with all this other stuff. That's not KDOT.
We don't even know that we're going to have to. But while we are tearing up the road, we might as well look forward and actually be a little forward thinking for once and fix any issues that we have. We know drainage is an issue. If we can make small steps to fix it, we should.
I'm going to take exception to your supposition that we're not forward thinking for once or forever. I think we're absolutely forward thinking, but forward thinking means doing the planning and determining that there is a need and that the proposed fix will actually do it. What you're proposing is the exact opposite of that.
That's the process.
then do the process right. I'm not going to vote for something that we think might potentially be needed. So without proving it. And we can do that anytime. We can do that separate from this project. We can do it at the same time through a different project.
Mr. Mayor, I move to call the question.
Motion has been moved and seconded. We'll move to,
There has to be a majority vote on calling the question.
oh. Okay. Do you want to give a, well, I can do it too. Basically, calling the question ends commission discussion on this current motion on the table to approve just a mill and overlay. This would not address sidewalks, drainage, etc. So I will, if by voting in favor of calling the question,
Then it moves immediately to a vote.
we are moving immediately to a vote on the motion from Commissioner Koloff.
Mhm.
So first, Commissioner Witt,
Yes.
Commissioner Koloff,
Nay.
Commissioner Meisenberg,
Nay.
Vice Mayor Miller.
So clarify that again for me before I vote.
So
So
basically, a motion to call the question is ending discussion, commission discussion on the current motion by Commissioner Koloff to approve the mill and overlay only, not addressing any sidewalk, curb and gutter, drainage structures, etc. And
So
then we
we're-
would go in directly into voting on that.
This is just
Motion.
to end the discussion. So if you vote yes, it is a vote to end the discussion. If you vote no, it's a vote to continue the discussion.
And if you vote yes to end the discussion, we immediately move on to voting on the motion on the table.
I'm going to say no.
Okay, myself, yes, we are still on the original motion. Do we have any further commission discussion on the original motion?
So the reason why I voted no is because I think that there's room for or opportunity for improvement. I don't necessarily think we need to go really extravagant. If it would be in the best interest to resurface and with the overlay, I definitely understand what you say about fixing what needs to be fixed as we go along, but being prudent with the budget. I would be more in favor of just having a further discussion about what options that we have available to make this project successful. I understand that we're just in the proposal right now, but I don't want to get further down the road and then have more issues at the end and waste everybody's time.
Sharon, I think that's why I am pushing the alternative is this is purely design. It's going to go through a full engineering study on the roadway to determine if we do need to replace any of the stormwater drainage structures, any of the failing sidewalks, curb and gutters, if there are those in place. If it doesn't need done, we won't have to replace them.
I'll echo Mayor Ryan's comments. We've got an example that just got completed, the south part of Buckeye. And you can take a look at that. Not every section of sidewalk was replaced. Not every section of curb and gutter was replaced. It was done as needed. And it was worked through to figure out you're only replacing what actually needs to get fixed. And that process was done the same way. Other than this is a little bit more intensive because it goes straight through the downtown. So that's why we spent a little bit extra time to receive public comment and work through those sorts of ideas. We're back to what we have to vote on today is sticking with 4 lanes, sticking with the parking on both sides, replacing the sidewalk as needed, doing ADA updates. So things will get figured out in design, but this is exactly how we did it. For the other portion that just got complete, that I've walked those sidewalks and I've checked things out, and it ended up pretty nice where it's a 50-year asset to serve the community. So yeah, this one's just has more eyes on it because it goes through downtown, touches more businesses and things like that, in which I know city staff will be conscious during the construction phase and design phase, making sure everything stays operational. So
I just I don't think I've seen that happen from city staff on any of the other projects, whether it was 14th Street or the South Buckeye project. I don't think they talked to many of the business owners, if any. I don't know. I'm happy to hear that you're going to talk to all of them, but I don't know why that hasn't been the process before. I haven't seen any engineering studies that showed that the drainage structures on South Buckeye need to be replaced. If those exist, I'd love to see them. They're made out of concrete. They're underground. They don't freeze and thaw like the surface does. I just think it's absolutely ridiculous. And for some reason, we've already approved $150,000 in engineering for a project that we don't know is going to happen.
Just like anything, if it doesn't go forward, we don't pay the $150,000.
Are you sure?
Quite sure.
You don't think we're going to pay $150,000 if we do a mill and overlay? Because I'm happy to hear that. But we signed the contract. You signed the contract.
Correct.
Yeah, and saying we've already spent it
It's not
is
true.
misleading. So
Well, in any event, that seemed to be a higher priority than actually getting the project right.
I think it's, once again, I will reiterate that this is the design process and engineering will follow. Discussion with business owners will follow as we know more details with the engineering and how to work that out with each business owner. So I think, I understand it seems a little backwards, but we don't fully engineer projects before we even know they're moving forward. That would be a waste of time, money, and energy.
Mr. Ryan, did you see the engineering reports that showed that the drainage structures on South Buckeye needed to be repaired or replaced?
I did not. That is not my role.
Mr. Marsh, do you have those reports?
There are no engineering reports on the drainage structures because Commissioner, as has been stated ad nauseum
Buckeye.
here on South Buckeye.
South
No, we
Buckeye.
replaced them as we needed to. If we got in there and determined when the road was tore up, we determined they needed to be replaced, they were replaced. That's the only time they get replaced.
Those have a 6-week or more lead time. How was it determined how those would be replaced at the time of the project when they needed to be ordered 6 to 8 weeks in advance?
Commissioner Coloff, I'll answer your question. They were pretty easy to identify they needed to be replaced because they were caved in some areas. If you walk the sidewalks, you could see there was metal like jutting down 6 inches where those inlets were. Like,
Is that the case downtown on between 3rd and 5th Street on Buckeye?
so you can see that there's broken up concrete where there's been shifting and settling in some of those inlets and things like that. So it's obvious, like some of them are going to need something, but it's not fully vetted yet, which happens in design. So.
And I don't believe there's a 6-week lead time. So you can say what you want, Commissioner, but there's not a 6-week lead time. So.
Do you want to, I'll put a $5 bet on that with you, Mr. Marsh.
Do we have any further commission comments?
So I do have a question. So if we approve the design option, are we stuck with what has been proposed? I know that it was stated that in our packet, these are just recommendations. So if we approve it, do we have flexibility to perhaps resurface?
Yes, Commissioner. What we're asking you to approve today is a 4-lane through from the north side of the Union Pacific Railroad tracks to Northwest 5th Street, 4 lanes. Keep the parallel parking between 3rd and 4th Street along there. We will look at the sidewalks and the curb and guttering and the drainage structures. And if they need to be replaced, if they need to be fixed, it will happen as part of this project. If not, they will be left alone and we will not be charged for that. So.
Thank you for the clarification.
Just so we're clear, my proposal or the motion that I've made that we're discussing right now is that the only thing we do through this project is the mill and overlay that's paid for by KDOT. If there are any sidewalks that need to be repaired, that we would do that separately.
Be advised, Commissioner, we're still going to have a cost to it because that's 90% up to $400,000. So we're still going to have 10% of whatever the cost is.
Thank you. I do understand that. I think I do have another question here, and this might be for Mr. Marsh or Mr. Bashamp, but what are the timelines and the critical dates on this project?
Actually, Mark Basham with Olson, actually KDOT called 3 weeks ago and they want this thing bid in November. Which we're pushing that time frame pretty hard to bid it in November for essentially a spring construction. Is kind of what they're eyeing right now.
And just so I'm clear, that's only on the parts that they're paying for that they're concerned about. They would have no interest in anything that's not a participating cost.
Well, they will review the plan. They'll review. We have to.
I'm not
follow
asking-
their steps.
I'm not asking that. If we say, hey, we are going to do a mill and overlay, that's the only thing that would be bid. Or if they're not going to put their fingers into stuff that is non-participating. If we decide to bid the sidewalks, say we want to include the sidewalks in this project and we
You
decide to
will
bid
have
that
to still
separate.
get a KDOT permit to do that because it's on KDOT right away.
Okay.
You're still gonna do it per KDOT. I mean, while I'm up here, I wasn't gonna say anything, but those sidewalks are settled 1.5 inches. You got areas that are tripping hazard. The other thing is those sidewalks are not ADA accessible. Even if what we're looking at, we have to get a survey completed. Even if you bring it up the 1.5 inches, I think you're gonna have more than a 1.5% slope. 2% is ADA cross slope. You can't build it at 2%, so you have to go flatter, so a contractor's got leeway. So 1.5% coming off the sidewalk for an ADA path. I don't think that will be ADA, and that makes some of the adjustments very tricky that need to happen. If you just do a mill and overlay and you just replace a sidewalk as it is, you're probably not going to meet ADA standard. So I'm just going to throw that out. That's the issue that work. If you just do the mill and overlay, that's fine. But look at what you're doing with the sidewalks. You could do the sidewalks separately, but you're more than likely not going to be ADA.
The sidewalks, the 2% grade is
Cross
side to
slope.
side, not front to back.
Cross slope.
Cross slope.
When
So
you're
it's in the
walking-
direction of travel, it's left or
Direction
right.
of travel, that's got to be less than 2%, actually 2.08.
Where's the issues that you think that that's a concern?
Pretty much all of it. So until you get into design, you don't know that. And that's the reason why the cost estimates are built that way. So you can replace it when you get into design. The storm sewers will not allow ADA cross path because the inlets are in the path of the ADA crosswalk. That's the reason why the inlets are getting replaced, are scoped in to replace. Because if you don't replace the inlet and try and move it and move the sump someplace else, we may not be able to get it to move. If we can't get it to move, it's going to stay there. Because that's just the way it's going to work. If the design doesn't work, they're going to stay.
So we can just do that aside from this then. I mean, what you're talking about is these corner inlets, right? Where they could potentially protrude into the sidewalk. So you move the sidewalk 4 feet down north or south and you put your crosswalk there.
That doesn't work. That doesn't work. That's not an ADA. That's not an ADA crosswalk from the intersection. Because you got crossbars, you got different things that the traveling public, the crosswalks have to be in a certain spot.
You just said we might not be able to do it anyway.
Why? You gotta design the thing. You gotta look at all the parameters. There's design guidelines on all this. We're not willy-nilly trying to put something together here. So. Anything else? Thank you.
Do we have any further commission discussion?
I'll just explain myself while I'll be voting against the current motion on the table. Voting against it because I believe it makes the most sense to do this project all at once. You have parts of the street dug up that you have to dig up to be able to get to the sidewalk, to be able to get to the curb. It makes sense to do the concrete work when you're doing the mill and overlay. Do it all at once. Only put through the pain and heartache of going through construction once so that it's solid for the next 50 years when it comes to the concrete. And that makes more sense to me than trying to piecemeal it. So that's why I'll be voting against the current motion.
Any further commission comments, discussion?
I would just disagree with you on doing the mill and overlay and concrete at the same time decreases any heartache. You can there've been sidewalks replaced, if you can call it piecemeal if you want, but you can replace them when you need them. If you need to replace a sidewalk, you go and replace the sidewalk. It's going to be a few days of pain. It takes a couple days to tear it out, a couple days to form it, a couple days to pour it, let it dry for a day. It's going to be 5 days for concrete, whether you do it with the mill and overlay or whether you do it separately.
Yeah, and then you start involving a stormwater structure involved in that sidewalk, and then you're digging up a lot more.
Any further commission discussion? Okay, seeing none, are we clear where we're at? I know there's been a lot of moving parts.
Now.
Okay, so what we're about to vote on is Commissioner Koolhoff's motion to simply do the mill and overlay, not addressing the sidewalk, stormwater drainage, those other pieces of it. That
To be clear, my motion is to do the sidewalks, but outside of this project.
okay. So in a separate phase.
However you like.
Okay. We have any other questions before we vote?
I do have a question. So with your motion that you have on the table, sidewalks will be done another time. What about the replacement of the inlets, the stormwater? So how will that fit into how we're gonna?
I think that's at this point, it would not. I am perfectly fine with doing it at the same time if we have engineering that says we need to do it. I don't think there's any point in approving a project right now for anything if we don't know that there's a need.
And we won't know about it until we
Through
get
the
in
engineering
there
phase, correct?
and look, right?
Correct. Prior to the project starting, but during the
Right.
engineering phase of it, we will know.
I have no problem. Like I said, if we want to do that separately, if we can get the engineering that says, yes, it absolutely needs to be done, then I'll be happy to bring it back up here and vote for it. That's a non-participating cost. We can still do it at the same time as this project if it's determined that it needs to be done.
You can also do it at the time of bids.
We can do it in a separate motion if you would like to do it. I'm not going to include it in this project. My motion is not to include it in this project that we have in front of us right now. Let's get data first.
My concern is I want to minimize the disruption to the businesses. And if we are doing it in chunks, I think that would cause more disruption than if we did it all at once.
I'm not saying that isn't done at the same time. I'm saying get the data first. Determine that there is a need, determine that we need to do it. We can still build it all in the spring. I'm not sure. We can check with Mr. Bashamp and see if we can do that separately. If between now and spring is enough time, it seems like it would be because it's included in this project to determine that there's a need before we commit to spending the money.
Which is exactly what will happen during the engineering phase. We're not committing to spending the entire budget.
Mr. Marsh sat here in the meeting that he had without asking for my input and then putting me on the Zoom without any way to talk and beat his chest and said, this is $1 million project. So are you telling me you're not going to spend $1 million now?
If we don't need to, we won't.
Mr. Marsh said it was.
The potential is there for it to be if everything needs replaced. Do we have any further questions, comments? Seeing none, would roll call vote. Commissioner Koolhoff,
Aye.
Commissioner Meisenberg,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller,
So this is the motion about resurfacing. Is that right?
correct, just resurfacing, none of the sidewalk, stormwater drainage, ADA compliance, that whole deal.
I'm gonna say no, I don't want to just resurface. I think there's opportunity, but no, I just don't want to do that if we have an opportunity to include other improvements with it. So it's a no.
Okay. Commissioner Witt?
No.
Myself, no, motion fails. I would make a motion to approve design option for the 2025 City Connecting Link Improvement Program, C-CLIP Project 021-U-2504-01, Union Pacific Railroad to Fifth Street with recommended comments from KDOT engineers during the on-site walkthrough.
I think we've already determined that those comments from the KDOT engineers were not well received by most of the business owners on that stretch.
We are waiting for a second prior to comment.
I'll second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Do we have any further commission discussion?
Yes, as I was saying, I think most of the business owners, the people who generate the tax dollars that make our government happen, have said that they don't approve the comments from KDOT. So I'm going to vote against this, as you might have guessed. And let's just take a sensible approach to this project. I don't think we need to spend, was it $700,000 of taxpayer dollars because KDOT gave us 400 or 90% of up to 400. I don't think we're doing the best thing for our business owners, and I don't think we're doing the best thing for our taxpayers.
Okay, that is certainly your opinion. Do you have any further commission discussion? Okay. Seeing none, I'll move to roll call vote. Commissioner Meisenberg,
No.
Vice Mayor Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Witt,
Yes.
Commissioner Koloff,
Nay.
myself, yes, motion carries. Next item is 7E, consider approval of the publication of the notice to exceed revenue neutral rate in the budget public hearings, setting both for August 26th, 2024 at 4:00 PM during the regular city commission meeting for the purposes of the 2025 budget. Finance Director Johnson.
All right, you have the budget that is how it is currently entered in the state workbook based on previous discussions and presentations. So I'm just asking for your input. We do need to have the notification published. We can change anything about what we put out there up until we actually approve a budget. We can't go over it. So that's
Business thing that I'm just noticing here, whichever laptop has a Zoom on it, the battery's running down. It doesn't look like it's plugged in. So just a heads up. Yeah. Sorry to disrupt the train of thought, but I saw that.
this is all a learning process.
Yeah.
I think when the initial budget was presented, there was about $1.2 million in errant overages. Where did those end up? Where did that $1.2 million for police, fire, and so forth end up in the budget? Mr. Marsh, it's your budget. You presented the budget.
Those were based on worst case scenarios for the police and fire department, and we went back and relooked at them and used the actuals. And so that's what we're.
But the revenue neutral rate was based on those worst case scenarios. That was what was in your budget was, I believe it was 700,000 increase for police and 500 for fire. And that was why we had to increase beyond the revenue neutral rate. So where did that $1.2 million go in your revised numbers?
I ended up going through all of the actuals for the end of the year. Those are based on what we expect to spend. I went through with the current salaries and benefits, and I did remove those. And if I honestly should have kept track of what the different changes were going back and forth. When I sent out the Banyan things, all of those are the numbers that come up with the 47.6. Forget what number it is. Those are how it is actually developed. Those are the numbers that go into how it calculated for what we are currently proposing for mill rate. It's not included in the packet. It was sent to you individually.
Yeah, and I think I pulled it out of my packet because I was
Do you know
comparing
what
them
page it was
head
on?
to head.
I have no idea because I had a lot of different changes and I didn't have time to track them. I'm so sorry. I just figured we could talk about line items as we need to. that's where we are going to have to look at it anyway. So I do apologize. And you can see the numbers in the state workbook. Those are the numbers that calculate it. The numbers that are calculated with the totals on the state workbook match up to the actual departments and funds.
And to take a little step back here, where we're at in the budget calendar. What's on the agenda is approving the hearing date for
The
this.
notice and the hearing date, yes.
The notice and the hearing date, which would be at the next meeting. And so that.
Well, no, this is where we're considering it today.
Right,
Yes.
right. Yeah, so where we're.
So I can
considering
get it,
the
no,
hearing.
I have to publish the notification, yes.
Right, right. And where we're at in process.
And I have to have a budget to put with that notification so that the public has access and can see what you're seeing.
Right. And so after that hearing, what has typically happened in years past is then the budget is approved at that same meeting after the hearing.
Or at a
Yeah.
later hearing,
Or it can happen.
or at a later
hearing.
date, yes.
And so if there's.
Before October 1st.
Right, which here in the calendar that staff prepared shows us our last regular meeting for us to fully approve the budget. By that deadline
Yeah.
is the second meeting in September.
Yes, that is correct.
So say the hearing happens and then there's changes presented by the commission. How
Mhm.
does that work after the hearing?
After the hearing,
Mhm.
that is what we submit.
Right.
That's just what we end up submitting to the state.
As long as we don't go over.
We
that
can't go
full
over what we
expect, yeah.
publish.
Right.
And that is what happens.
The dollar amount or the mill levy,
Yeah.
yes.
So I'm looking at your budget here and I think I found your $1.2 million. There's $1 million in cash reserve being budgeted for 2025. We're adding $1 million.
We always
always
have $1
do that.
million in cash reserve. It's based on our policy. It's always been
The
there.
1.2 is adjusting two separate columns, so it didn't go any, I mean, we're able to, when we use actuals as opposed to worst case scenarios, we're able to budget a little tighter.
Wanted to clarify one other point here. Excuse me here. So on your proposed budget for 2025, there's no income for ad valorem tax.
That's what's being calculated.
It's being calculated with no ad valorem.
We don't put that into the state form. It's got X's.
Right.
It's being calculated based on what we're entering and what we need. So that's where the proposed, I believe it's on the very last page in the budget certification. It's kind of small on my computer, just a moment.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
3,190,668 would be the amount of ad valorem tax based on the current mill levy of 47.642.
I think this still shows the numbers, the higher incorrect numbers for both police and fire.
Where are you looking? I'm sorry, on
You're fine. This is on
the state budget?
the state budget sheet. It's page 7A of that form. I think I've got the
Okay.
corrected forms you sent out here. Yeah, so
They were revised, though. The original one, these are the ones that I did present as, these are not the ones that were presented, these are the ones that were revised. I don't know what you mean by presented, because they are lower than what was presented.
When we were in the meeting here, we were presented with budgets that were,
And I sent revised budget.
Yeah,
Those are the
that's what I'm
ones that
trying
you're
to-
looking at,
I'm trying
which
to
is
clarify here.
correct.
yeah, I'm sorry, I'm
Yeah.
jumping back and forth between a bunch of forms.
Police originally was 1,744,000. Gosh, can't read it. 547. And it was revised to what you have in front of you, which is the 1,000,000. That's fire. 1,513,112 salaries and benefits total. So there are revised numbers. Fire was originally 1,276,998. Revised is $1,042,074. Those were the two main ones. Streets, I believe, had a difference as well, but.
I've got a couple questions. I'll set up.
Yeah, go ahead,
I'll
because
set up a
I'd like
time.
to,
I'll set up a time with you this week if that
Okay.
works.
yeah, that'd be great.
I guess on the motion or on the agenda item in front of us, just like I voted against moving this far in the process, I'm going to vote against approval of publication of the notice because I don't think that there's any reason we can't be more efficient with our taxpayers' dollars in projects like 3rd and Buckeye and 14th and Van Buren to be able to not just stay even, but cut taxes for next year. Looking at again, that's 7A sheet, if you have that in front of you.
Yeah.
Our total expenditures in 2023 were 5.7 million. In 2024, it's 5.6 million. And we're pushing forward 1.952 million. And we've budgeted now for 7.5 million for 2025. So even if we carry $1 million forward, we're budgeting for $952,000 more than we need based off of last year. That's the amount that we're carrying forward. Some of that's probably going to be from unfilled positions. Maybe we're not going to see all of that, but I don't think we need to budget for $7.5 million when we've historically spent 5.6 and 5.7.
Do we have any other questions for staff on this?
I would make a motion not to approve publication of notice to exceed revenue neutral rate and budget public hearings.
Okay, motion has been moved. Do we have a second? We have a second? Seeing none, motion fails due to lack of second. We're still on the original item 7E.
I'll make a motion to approve publication of the notice to exceed revenue neutral rate and the budget public hearing, setting both for August 26, 2024 at 4 p.m. during the regular city commission meeting for purposes of the 2025 budget.
And I'll second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Do we have any further commission discussion?
I've been spending some time reflecting on the past 10 years of budgets in the city of Abilene, and then also thinking forward towards future years. And one of the reflection points that I find since I've been on this board, and the budget, my first budget that I voted on was in 2020, which I'm sure none of us want to go back to 2020. Tough time, and comparisons to inflation and whatnot. If we look at what this budget as presented right now is a 3.7 increase in property tax levied. That's what the city would levy. That's a 3.7 increase in total dollars as compared to the 2023 budget. For 2024, it was we were below revenue neutral, so it was we levied less property tax this current year than we did the year prior. Looking at since 2020, how much property tax we've levied, it's increased by this proposed budget would increase in dollars on property tax levy 7.9%. Inflation over that same amount of time has gone up 15.6%. So everything that I've seen working with staff, working through these items, there's always points of refinement, but that's doing pretty good, I think. So appreciate the time presented. I'm sure we'll have more refinements during the hearing to refine that further. Again, tying back to the cash reserve, that's been a discussion point that I've had since I've been on the board, where when I got on, we were carrying over more cash beyond what our policy called for. And I'm like, hey, let's not do that. Let's stay within the policy, which I think is what has enabled us to do this over the past 5 years. So, yeah.
I just think our taxpayers deserve better than pretty good. I think we can tighten our belts. We can be more efficient with the resources that we have. You know, there's how many line items on here? What's the Commissioner Witt, I want to make sure I understood what you were saying. You're saying the difference was 3.1. Is that 3.1% over last year? Is that the
3.7?
3.7. Okay. And it's 3.7% over last year is what?
Yeah, because fiscal year 23 and 24 are pretty much the same in dollars and property
Correct.
tax levied.
Yeah. I think Mr. Royer was onto something. I think we need to be more efficient with our dollars. I think we need to look at where we're spending them. I think we need to put contracts out for bid so that we can make sure that we're getting the best price, like our bylaws say we're supposed to do. I'm a little bit jaded, I would say, because in the year that we did increase the budget in 2022, I sat down with Mr. Marsh and the budget director, the finance director at that time, and came up with ways that we could go under the revenue neutral rate. And Mr. Marsh took the easy ones and put those into the budget. And then anything that required work, including a $40,000 phone call that he promised me he would make, and didn't do it. And so I'm more than sure that we can work. This is work. This is a job for us to work for our citizens to avoid raising their taxes, just like we did last year. We were able to avoid raising taxes last year, and I think we can do it again. If we don't want to work at it, I'm sure we can spend 3% more or 5% more or 10% more.
I would implore you to make those recommendations that you see that we could cut. That's everyone up here has the same ability to make those recommendations. So do we have any further commission discussion? Being none, we'll move to roll call vote. Vice Mayor Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Witt, Commissioner Koloff,
Nay.
Commissioner Meisenberg,
Yes.
myself, yes, motion carries. Next item is item 8A, items for discussion. Consider approval of a bid from Diamond Roofing for the replacement of the roof at the water treatment plant in the amount of $365,570. Public Works Director Anderson or City Manager Marsh.
I will take this, Mayor. The water treatment plant's roof has leaked for a long time. It's no longer under warranty, and attempts to fix it as cheaply as possible in the past have created a larger problem. The City Commission approved the architectural services contract with BBN Architects of Manhattan at the January 22nd, 2024 regular meeting. BBN Architects inspected the roof and gave the city an observation report on the roof and wall damage, which was included in the January 8th meeting agenda. Bids were opened on July 23rd, 2024 at Abilene City Hall. Diamond Roofing was the low bid at $365,570. BBN Architects has no issues with their work and recommends awarding the bid to Diamond Roofing. The engineer's opinion of probable cost and cost breakdown is included in the packet. The recommendation is to award the bid, the low bid for the water treatment plant roof replacement to Diamond Roofing. This is a discussion item, but we're asking for approval today so we can get started on it before winter hits. We'd like to get this done before the cold weather sets in.
Just as a matter of process, I would ask that we put this as just a study item and vote on it at the next meeting, as is our regular process. I've been bitten more than once when we do projects like this, where we approve them on the first meeting, and then I hear from someone after the fact with facts that would be pertinent to the commission. So as a matter of process, I'm happy to look at this as a study session item, but I would like to wait until next meeting to vote on it so we can get feedback from any interested parties.
Looking at the packet, there was 2 bids received.
Correct.
Who it was, and that was just general, I guess, talk about how that bid letting process played out. Was there anybody specifically, any specific companies contacted, or it was more just put out there and then?
The architects ran did the bid letting, did that
Okay.
whole bid setup for us, very similar to what we did for the police department, with the architects. When we did the police department remodel, they sent it out and it was published on the web. It was published on our website. It was published on the local, whatever professional journal they use or listserv or process they use. And we expected 4 bids, 2 declined to bid, probably because of the scope. They think because of the scope of the project, and the other 2, we did get the 2 bids in, so.
Okay.
Leanne, do you know off the top of your head what is in that water reserve fund?
You're reading my mind.
It's over 400,000. I can get, if you give me a minute, I can find it probably, but it's over 400,000.
That's what I was thinking, is that this would spin it down quite a bit.
Yeah, I know. I looked it up for Ron when he asked and gave him the number at that time.
Do we have an idea of how long the repair will take?
And we've given them a 75-day window.
The amount is 411,452 as of July 30th.
Thank you.
I would make a motion to table this to our next meeting.
Motion has been moved. Do we have a second? Do we have a second? Seeing none, motion fails due to lack of second. What is the, I guess, what's the drop dead date on getting this done prior to winter? I mean, obviously, we don't know when winter's coming, but.
Mayor, I'm going back and looking looking right now, but I believe they have to be done by October 31st. I believe that's the
work would have to be completed.
Yes.
And we're already getting pretty close to our 75-day window.
The architect has asked that it get voted, asked if possible to vote on it today so we can get going. Because they're going to take a little bit of time, you know, there might be 6-week lead time somewhere in there. So we're going to take time to make sure we can get it done in by October 31st. If that, and I'll double check for you.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the bid from Diamond Roofing for the replacement of the roof at the water treatment plant in the amount of $365,570.
I will second that.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Do we have any further commission discussion?
I think Mr. Marsh is looking up that date. I'd like to hear that before a vote if possible.
Yep, October 31st.
Okay, motion does have a motion and a second. Do we have any further commission discussion? Seeing none, move to roll call vote. Commissioner Witt,
Yes.
Commissioner Koloff,
Reluctantly, yes.
Commissioner Meisenberg,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller,
Yes.
myself, yes, motion carries. Next item is 9A, City Manager's Report. City Manager Marsh.
Commissioners, construction updates, 14th Street, we are scheduled for a walkthrough on August 15th, which is this Thursday. The road should be open for traffic by Friday of this week, which is in time for school, and the entrances to the schools will be open. So Abilene Court will be changing its name to Abilene Terrace. Byron Adrian with Mennonite Housing is notifying the necessary entities to make that change. The week of August 26th, the new utility billing system will go live for training and migration. In order to facilitate the process, the front office of City Hall, where your water bills are paid, will be closed each day that week from 8 to 3 p.m. and will open from 3 to 5 p.m. for walk-in traffic. The Planning Commission completed training last Tuesday, August 6th. Yesterday was the last day the city pool was open. The annual dog swim is actually going on now, and it's from 4 to 7 today. The police department will be closed during the morning and some of the afternoon on Wednesday, August 14th, so department employees can attend a funeral. And finally, if you haven't, the League of Kansas Municipalities Annual Conference is the 10th through the 12th of October. If you would like to go, please let Shayla know and she'll get you signed up. That we will be presenting or voting on or approving voting delegates for that in one of the next meetings. So, okay, stand for any questions.
Do we have any questions on the city manager's reports? Being none, I would consider a motion to recess.
How long do we need? No.
5 minutes is good by me.
5:35.
minutes.
5:35.
35. Yeah.
45
35.
or 35, sorry.
Yeah.
So I'll make a motion to recess the August 12th, 2024 City Commission meeting with the study session starting at 5:35.
I'll second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Do we have any further commission discussion? Seeing none, would roll call vote. Commissioner Koloff,
Aye.
Commissioner Meisenberg,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Witt,
Yes.
myself, yes, motion carries. We are in recess. study session. First item is 12A, discussion regarding the annual adoption of the Standard Traffic Ordinance, STO, and Uniform Public Offense Code, UPOC, for Kansas City's. Assistant Chief Wilkins, I'm assuming you're stepping in for Chief Hatter, is that Ron? Okay. Got it.
And Chief Hatter, I apologize that you're stuck with me tonight. I'll try to be brief because I'm certain these people that are stuck around not here to listen to me talk. What is before you is consideration to adopt 2024 standard traffic offense code as part of the changes made from last year's to this year's. Traffic side deals with duty of drivers involved in trees. Here on the public events side of it, amended conduct. Added questions.
Can you provide us with a detailed list of those changes? I'm looking at my packet and I'm not seeing them readily here. Yeah, if you want to email it, I think maybe the rest of the commissioners would be interested in reading that as well.
Yep. Yeah.
There's something in the packet, but I don't think it details the items that Assistant Chief Wilkins was describing.
Yeah, seemed like they typically publish that 1 or 2 pager highlighting those summaries. Yeah.
I know they usually highlight this in there too, but were there any of them in there that you thought could hinder your ability to do your job?
Collective of legislative changes at the state level.
Right. I knew in the past there were some that were not ideal, so we actually removed those. We're not adopting them, so.
Correct.
Okay. Do you have any further questions for Assistant Chief Wilkins on this?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Our next item is 12B, 14th and Van Buren intersection discussion. City Manager Marsh.
Commissioners, I'll turn this over to the commission. It was requested by a commissioner to put this on, so.
Yeah, so that was me. Agenda originally went out, and then I'd been wanting to put this on from the public comments that we got from Brad at the last meeting, and then subsequent letter and then published letter to the editor by Brian. So important thing for people not to be confused. 2 different people, brothers. And so anytime we receive those public comments, I think it's good to have a follow-up discussion amongst the commission. And then particularly if the commission's ever addressed in a letter to the editor, it's good for us to have a dedicated point to talk about things. So I do know that since we last had a vote on this, we were still waiting on hearing back from the feds on an application that we made to the bipartisan infrastructure law. One of the granting programs through there that we didn't have high hopes for, but then we were told to submit anyways. And then if you could explain how that process went.
Correct, Commissioner. We had applied for a raise grant of 2024 raise grant through the federal government. We did not receive that grant. We did, however, receive $2.5 million from the state of Kansas for the what we unofficially call the 14th Street Business Industrial Corridor for water, sewer, and some road improvements, building one road within that area. So
yeah, and that's for bringing access to the sites that the city owns under the land bank to make those shovel ready sites.
Correct. It'll take
Yeah.
water and sewer. Well, actually, it'll provide water and sewer to the entire area. With one of the things we'll be doing is a lift station that will serve the entire area. So not just those 4 sites. Yes, ideally, we will be able to develop those 4 sites with shovel ready, make them shovel ready. But it'll also, anybody else that owns land that wants to develop it or could potentially develop it, it may make it more attractive on the resale to sell it to potential buyers.
So that's a separate.
That's a
but
separate
related.
That's a separate,
Yeah.
separate deal or separate project.
Right. So circling back to the 14th and Van Buren, comments made that what's currently approved, which is that T intersection, is, and removing the wings, so those curves that go through that, is not an improvement, is potentially even a step back, is what we've received in those comments. And so, still to a point where that was like we talked about today, where we approved the concept, that was a concept that we approved, but we're still in this point of the project where it's not designed yet. So wanted to take this point to talk amongst the commission, how the commission has received those comments, and if anybody's had a change of mind. So this is my preference, it's up to the commission, is I want to hear the thoughts of the commission first, and then we'll work through that discussion, and then as a matter of practice, we're always receptive to hear public comments, but I'm interested to hear what these people are thinking. Yeah.
Any comments from the commission on this item? Any thoughts?
I'm happy to share a few of my thoughts, as usual. I don't think we need to spend that much money on that intersection. That's kind of my, I frankly don't believe it's going to cost $3 million to do what we've proposed, but I don't think we should take money from the state just to do a project because the state's helping out with some of it. I think we should do the right thing. And I don't know that anybody's ever complained about this intersection to me. It's not actually in the city, so I'm not sure we should be touching it anyway. So, looking at the options in front of us, I would be voting against this project in its current form.
Any other comments from the commission?
Yep. When we were talking about this, I was the one that made the motion that failed, talking about an unpopular concept of a roundabout. My mindset and what I'm thinking towards this project is a recognition that it's functional the way it is now. Absolutely. I'm trying to look at this 20, 30 years down the road and doing this intersection in a way that improves traffic flow and improves it in a way where it's designed towards a design vehicle like a semi truck at 50-foot or 60-foot radiuses, whatever's figured out, and doing it in a time where we've got grant funds and where we've got minimal impact on to the area, because most of the area, again, to the south of that intersection is not developed yet, but that is where Abilene makes sense for Abilene to grow and all that. And so if we update that intersection now, it's something to do to solve a problem now and benefit of the future. And I'm agreeable to a four-way stop that was originally proposed, again, designed in a way where it services those semi trucks and things like that. Again, shifting it in such a way where it does have minimal impact on private property. As with every project, if it does intrude on private property, that goes through a process of compensation. So where we negotiate with landowners and we pay them for that property. A large part of these budgets can be for land acquisition. So again, and the reason why I voted for the motion for the roundabout was because, again, you think that's the traffic's always flowing. through a roundabout. It's always moving. You got the little curb ups that come up on the side, and some people get freaked out by those, but that's a drivable surface for a semi truck. It's designed for the semi to pop up onto that curve, and that kind of helps them know where they're at in the radius. But I'm agreeable to a four-way stop because as in pursuit, proposed here, that's about the same cost as what's currently in the pipeline. So, which is around $3 million is my understanding. So from an economic development perspective, making an investment now that will pay off towards the future, because this is where it makes sense for Abilene to be growing. That's what I'm agreeable to.
How do you justify spending city money in the county?
Knowing that it's going to be city property. Because this entire area, and this is where it's going to get very unpopular, and we're going to have people showing up here, is annexation. And I'll say that because if you look on the county website, it's a hodgepodge of county, city, all around that whole area. And it's kind of a separate thing. I'll be quick about it. It's one of those areas where that was allowed to happen. And we have mutual aid agreements. So if there's a fire in one of those houses that's in the county, Abilene Fire is still going to respond to it because we have a mutual aid agreement, but that person isn't paying property taxes that funds our fire department. So they're getting a benefit from something that they don't pay for, which I still think is right. You should still respond to it in that way, but also it's like, is it fair? I don't know, but that's a point where like this area around the 14th industrial area in this northwest corner of Abilene is eventually going to all be Abilene city limits. I foresee that. It's going to be a difficult process to get there because there's going to be protests along with that because nobody wants to pay more property taxes. But it comes to a discussion of what's fair and what makes sense. So,
And I'll put it a little more bluntly. Back when this was allowed to be a hodgepodge and hey, do you want to be in the city? Do you want to be in the county? All that did was kick the can down the road to us now. Now we get to be the bad guys, basically. This should have been handled long ago and it never was. So at some point, it's going to come to a head. That's the only logical location for growth in the city of Abilene due to floodplain issues, et cetera. So unfortunate for us, but that's the job.
How many lots do we have at Golden Belt?
I don't know off the top of my head.
I've been in Abilene for 17 years now. And I had the privilege to live in a house that had a 1920 on the front of it. But I was told it was probably older than that, but that's when the records burned. So they just kind of ballparked it. It was probably closer to 1908 or 1910. And the house at the other end of the block was built in 1962. And you could kind of see the timeline of Abilene's growth just on my little block. It was 1910, 1930, 1940, 1950, and 1960. And while I'm optimistic about the future of Abilene, I don't think that we are growing where we're going to need hundreds and hundreds of homes, or I don't know. I mean, when was the last time the population varied by more than 3,000 or 300?
I think we're seeing a lot of projects now that are going to cause that to happen. I'm hopeful of that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think there's things that are happening, but I think that, annexing the whole west side of town so we have housing out there is probably not happening in your lifetime or my lifetime.
We'll see.
As far as kicking the can down the road, that's what we've been doing on item 12C. So I think a good way to avoid that uncomfortable or unpopular thing is, not annexing or taking people's property into the city.
That's an easy out. It's not always feasible long term. If you want to grow, you got to grow somewhere. Do you have any other comments on 14th Van Buren? I can share my own if anybody else has.
I just have a comment, extending the discussion. I apologize for missing the, public discussion. I had a death in the family, so unfortunately I wasn't able to attend, but I appreciate the emails and I appreciate the calls. And I'm agreeable to whatever way we can make Abilene safer and better for everybody.
My personal feeling on it, I'm not extremely inclined to do anything at the moment, which is ironic considering what I just said. Because it's absolutely correct. 14th of Van Buren is not it's not our property right now. That's just the facts of it. If it's a joint venture with the county, then we could certainly look at that. I'm not quite sure where those numbers are exactly right now. I'm looking to Janelle, but not saying you have to answer. I'm just saying that would be a discussion. If it was a joint venture, then I think we can look at it even if it's not our property, because it most likely will be in the next 5 to 10 years. But I'm not willing to support this T intersection project because realistically it's a 3 to 5 year fix. I mean, we're going to spend $3 million for 3 to 5 years. Just leave it the way it is for now until we can correct it long term. I don't like short term fixes all the time. Sometimes they're necessary just to start the process, but in this case, it's a little bit bigger than just starting the process. It's an entire road redesign, and if we're going to do that, we need to do it so it's going to support the expected traffic out there for 20, 30 years. So at this point, the way it is, with a T, I'm not willing to support that. I wanted to keep the project alive because that raise grant that we had been working on was still in the works. We didn't know about that. I didn't feel right killing a project without knowing those findings, but now that we do, I'm not personally willing to do the T intersection.
What about, would you be willing to revert back to the originally proposed design of a four-way stop? Again, looking at total numbers, around $3 million, 700,000 KDOT grant, $1 million from the county is I think where they were at. So we're looking at a city side of 1.3. Okay.
Why don't we acquire the property first and then do the project?
Well, you just stated we're not going to annex anything.
Well, I'm just saying, well, really what I'm saying is don't do the project on property that we don't control. So if you want to annex it, and then maybe do the
You
project.
were the one that made the motion for this.
You're correct. You're correct. I've had time to think about it. This is exactly why I want things on a study session and then to be able to vote them on a regular meeting. I've had time to think about it. I've had time to talk to the public. I change my mind sometimes. I don't think the city should be spending money on county property.
So what if the county goes in jointly with us?
What do they do? Do they spend money in the city for us? Like where are they going to help us with Third and Buckeye? Are they going to help us with South Buckeye?
I mean, if they put $1 million into the project, they have a fairly good idea that it's not going to be their land for much longer.
I'm not following you there.
If they put $1 million into the road project on land that's currently in county, under the county purview, knowing that it probably won't be within the next 3 to 5 years.
Right, but we're talking about today. I'm
Right.
asking, will the county spend $1 million on South Buckeye, which is in the city? I think the answer is no.
I wouldn't.
Well, I wouldn't either if I were them. And I don't think we as the city should be spending money on county
Well, the
property.
county's not going to annex South Buckeye. We are planning, long-term planning, that's going to happen.
You've got the cart before the horse. If you want to spend the money on the intersection, go annex it. Take it through the process and then spend the money. I realize you at least somewhat agree with where I'm at on this, at least as far as doing the project, but just do it right. Do the process right. Where else do we spend money out in the county? Are we spending money for roads by Harrington?
It's
the same thing. We're spending money on property that does not belong to us.
That looks like what we're about to annex. This is
You're
the
saying
part of,
annex it.
this is
Do it first.
This is so you want the entirety of the tax burden to be placed on only Abilene citizens.
I don't want to do the project.
Okay, then full stop.
Full stop. But
Okay.
you're asking me to start from a premise that I don't agree with. So if we're going to do the project, do it in the right order. When we built the Highlands, or when the city built the Highlands 20 years ago, they annexed it into the city. They put in the infrastructure. They built the homes. It didn't work out. We're doing it now, but that was the right process. If we want to spend a penny on an intersection, Let's own it first.
Okay.
And to be clear, I'm going to vote against annexation.
Do we have any further discussion on that?
Yeah, I was just wanting to see if my main desire in this was seeing if where the commission was at with the current design proposal and if there was any agreeableness to shift that to a four-way stop, which is comparable costs to what's currently in front of us. And so what I'm hearing is we've got two commissioners that are full stop, done with the project.
That's not necessarily true. For me, I don't want the T intersection. I don't think that's going to solve our long-term problems.
Okay. Where you at with a four-way stop?
Be okay with it. Don't love it, but if we were going to do a project out there, I'd rather spend money on a project that actually will work down the road versus have to be readdressed in 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
How do you make that determination? And just so I'm clear, you were the one who voted against that because of going on private property, if I'm recalling correctly. You said that you weren't in favor of taking private property through eminent domain for the four-way stop. Did I misunderstand you?
I don't think I ever said that.
Okay, well, I apologize.
I mean, I don't like to do it, but
okay.
there are times things are inevitable.
Then nothing's inevitable. We're up here. We get to make the choices.
How do you want to reroute a road that works perfectly? It doesn't touch somebody's property.
Well, I hear what you're saying, but that's my question is, how do you say that what we have now is not going to work in 3 to 5 years? How do you know that today?
With our expected expansion out there between housing and industrial.
I'm saying fundamentally, if you've got a T intersection or a four-way intersection or a roundabout, how do you look at two options and say this will serve the needs and this won't serve the needs?
Because it's those two options are modern intersections that promote traffic flow. Cutting wings off a T intersection doesn't promote traffic flow.
I don't disagree with you. In fact, I think what I proposed in my original proposal was that we rebuild it just like it is with the wings. And I think Mr. Basham told us that KDOT would never approve that, if I'm remembering correctly. He also told us he wouldn't approve the thing that they did approve. So take that with a grain of salt.
Anybody else's?
I would just leave it as it is. I think that's what people want. That's what I've heard. And there's no accidents there. I think we stated that at the public. And so I'm just like, I just don't understand all of this. People want it left. There's been no accidents. Saves us money. Just leave it. So.
Have any comments?
For me, I'm agreeable. I'm flexible. I wanna do what's best for the city, and if that's improving the flow, then I'm all for it. In anticipation for the increase in traffic, but if a majority wants it just to delay it or stop it, then I would consider that also.
I'm receptive to some public comment
Yeah,
now,
absolutely.
but I think there's a variety of people that want to speak, so try to stay tight on the 3 minutes.
Yep. Please state your name and address for us.
I live on the corner between 14th and Van Buren, this intersection, and 14th and Old 40, this intersection. And I'm sorry for your loss. I think you didn't get when I passed this out at one time, but the two red squares are the two intersections that somehow had started being considered one. And you talked about putting two intersections, and the engineer said how far those are apart from each other. You wouldn't take 2 blocks and put a roundabout to connect 2 blocks. My questions here months ago was, why was this started and why now? What's wrong with the old 40 bypass and the exit west 14th Street, the Turkey Crossing? You have had my neighbor Fred
who is a truck driver, other truck drivers say that the way that's curved works very well. There's not been significant accidents or injuries. There's not been significant complaints. My understanding is there's not a real reason to connect those two, except if you are looking for getting a grant from the state for being 2 miles from a school and having people walk or ride their bikes. If that's the case, tell the schools so they're going to know to prepare for this influx. If you're talking about sidewalks and bicycling paths to get from the schools out to the new addition, and on the second page, according to the plots, there's 310 families, plots that I count there, and that's not counting whatever's going on north of town. When all the people north of I-70 that drive to Abilene are unable to go through that intersection during the time it would be modified, however, need to look at how many miles they're going to have to go to keep doing the stuff in the town of Abilene. You have desires to do upgrades and stuff with my house, but if I can't even put money in changing an old bathtub to where I can get in it without falling, if you're gonna say you're gonna buy my house, tell me if you're gonna do it, tell me now, instead of this in the dark. So I would like to know, why do we need to combine those two intersections? Salina, Old 40 was the way they did it before. Get people to the north side of town and the center part of town without going down 3rd Street. That reason still exists. Old 40 into Abilene is important for the people on the west side of Abilene.
We're at time limit, so thank you. Do we have anyone else that would like to address the commission? State your name and address, 3-minute time limit.
Brad Dunlap, I'm owner of John's Service, 425 North Buckeye. Yes, I definitely want to keep the wing wrap. As far as safety issue, I've looked at some things. There's trees that's on the north side of the northern wing road. I believe that's on the city county properties. So what would be helpful is to remove those trees. So as you're traveling west or east on 14th Street, you can see the traffic coming west on 14th Street before you even get to the intersection. And you do the correct thing. Head on to the south, easy. You talked about this big roundabout. Essentially, you have about 3/4 of a roundabout. Just as you enter a roundabout, you have to yield to the left. And you do that now, with the exception of wanting to go east on 14. You don't have to spend all this. There's trees to the south over by Doc Wall's place. I talked to him. He says, yeah, some of these trees need to go. That would make the people able to see and make it safer. Be able to pull out and go when you're stuck. Anyway, it would keep flow going very well.
Thank you. Have anyone else that would like to speak? Just state your name and address and 3-minute time limit.
Fred Bailey. 16, West 14th. No. It kind of amazes me how we think everything's perfect. Nothing in this world is perfect. I've been on the trucking business the biggest share of my life. From load trucks, I pull 53-foot vans, 53.
Great ass, cattle trailer, I got it. Big trucks, I mean, trucks that are, what some of these companies drive, are little short trucks, and trucks that are 300-inch wheelbase. That's a big truck. Never had no problem. I made that corner, I ran. Okay, just while Alco was out there, I ran 25 trucks. We ran, come down to, stopped at 801 Northwest 7th Street. The trucks came down there, they left from there and went up to that corner, made the corner. You know, I don't know what people are looking for. The fact of, you talk about intersections. I can remember going to Kansas City on I-7 when the dockyard used to be down there on the bottom. Okay, but when you went on I-70, it was 7 o'clock in the morning, you would barely slow down when you come past 7th Street. If you didn't, you'd have a wreck because the traffic was tied up. Have they changed that road in? No, it's still the same road. You know, we're gonna have to realize, you can't make everything perfect. There hasn't been no accidents out there at all. And what, 1 or 2 accidents in 20-some years? I've been on that corner over 20 years. And, you know, talk about changing for what? What reason we want to change? Because the state is gonna put some money in the deal and we're gonna be responsible for the bigger share of what they are. And I moved out there, if you want, what I'm saying is that if you want the property, you know, it was up for sale when I bought it, it's for sale right now. If you guys want to buy it, I'll move. Make the roundabout, do whatever. Don't think, you know, force it down my throat, because I moved out there because I was out in the county. I didn't move out there so that I would be in the city limits. I know where the city limits are at. You know, I don't need it. I don't need to have it in the city limits. If that's what you want, you want to make a big roundabout, and you have buy the whole thing and do whatever you want to do. Don't try to force it down. So that's not what I want. And that shouldn't be. You know, if you want a roundabout, for the roundabout, like I told before, I had a guy told me in fact, he still lives around it. I can bring him in to the meeting if that's necessary. If he came from Maine, they were taking roundabouts out. I've talked to state guys. I was on a state session back several years back, and they talked about, you know, the roundabout down at Florence. There's people drive across that roundabout all the time. They don't make the roundabout because roundabouts are not, if you make it big enough, you might as well get around it. But if you know where it's at, you know, but this factor of trying to change, you know, if it's not broke, you shouldn't try to fix it. And that's what we're trying to do, is spend money on something that doesn't need to be fixed.
Thank you. We are at time.
Huh?
We are at time. Thank you.
Okay.
Do we have anyone else that would like to address the commission? Please state your name, address, and there's 3-minute time limit.
Or, as we made one, we didn't respect the yield sign. And it's, I really appreciate that you're going to stop it for now. And that we will continue to live within our means, but also to consider the future. And in that future, what is considered? What are you considering as industrial? And are you bringing that to the public so that we know what's going on? I think transparency is very important. And I appreciate that you're sharing and have open meetings so that we can voice our opinion. I know it's a tough job. I've been in the public. I've had ownership of real estate as a realtor. So thank you for considering stopping this for now. And just let's move on, but do let us know what's being planned in the future. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else that would like to address the commission? Name, address, 3 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Terry Swearengin, I live at 550 myself. So what's proposed now, the T intersection, when I was a kid, which you probably weren't, that's what it was a T intersection right there. You put the wings on it to make it better, you put a four-way stop. Kale's in the house. Kale, if you have to come to a stop sign with a fire truck, does that make it slower or faster?
We gotta slow down at intersection.
Right, but if you have, if there's a stop sign there, you're gonna slow down even more than you will yield if you're not seeing cars coming, correct?
Correct.
Okay, just checking. Something else I want to ask you, Mr. Whip, maybe you can answer this. How did you get up here? Were you voted to be up here by the people?
Yep.
Okay, so that you were brought in by the people, before the people, correct?
And do you live in city limits?
No.
Okay.
Any idea how much taxes I pay to city limits? I know you probably don't care, but I'm just asking. I do have 3 minutes. You're for the people. correct?
Right, because you own businesses here, right?
Well, I've been to most of the meetings and
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to wonder how many of the people that voted you in are for this. I understand Mr. Ryan's correct. There are tough decisions that have to be made at some point. But I also understand that I drove down Third Street to get here, falling apart. I definitely think we can take our money, put it right here in the city of Abilene, where you guys can vote on it, and I won't even come in and make a scene. That makes you feel better. But I think we can spend our money here in Abilene, Kansas to make Abilene better, to bring good families, young families to town and make good jobs here. And do something a little better than spending millions of dollars out there on an intersection that's working just fine. I know it's kicking the can down the road, but if somebody does build something out here, because we heard all about the Highlands, how many houses were supposed to be out there? How many? Anybody know?
110 families.
110 families. How many of them are out there? Good thing we kicked that can down the road. So eventually, yes, you're gonna have to make some tough decisions. There's no doubt about it. Change is hard for everyone, myself included. But I think you gotta take what you have, where you're at, what you need, and use it on this. And take the people that voted you folks in this office. And you're right, I'm not one of them. Because I don't get a vote, I just get a paycheck. Great. Listen to the people that voted you in up here, folks, and do the right. Thank you.
Thank you. If anyone else that would like to address the commission?
Russ Johnson, 1000 North Washington, here in Abilene. I'll make it brief. Glad that you guys are walking back from the removing the wings and going to the two, because that will absolutely make it more unsafe. So whatever you do, please do not do that, because it'll back traffic up into Flag Road and all of that, and it's gonna be, it won't be good, not for all the trucks there. As far as how you handle the rest of it, you didn't start it, you gotta finish it, it's up to y'all, so. Good luck, have fun. I mean, the four-way isn't the best, but for the money and you got funding, it's kind of hard to walk away from that money, I guess. But I understand doing nothing and waiting.
Thank you. Do we have any? I will give Martin Schneider the floor. He's tried to walk up about 6 times now. Just state your name, address, 3-minute time limit.
Thank you, Mayor. Martin Schneider, 723 2600 Avenue, Abilene, Kansas. I'm here for economic development, okay? That's why I'm here. The intersection is cumbersome. I think I just heard 2.5 million is gonna come in to improve utilities out west, is that correct? So someone sees that there's some opportunity out west, some do. Interesting, I agree with Commissioner Witt, Commissioner Rain. I even agree with the guy back there that doesn't pay city taxes about we shouldn't be kicking the can down the road, but we are. roundabout. That's where I would stand, because that makes the most sense in the future. I know that really isn't on the table, but you give me 3 minutes to talk, so I'm gonna say that. No wing walls, that doesn't really make sense. Or I'm sorry, wing roads. I agree with you. I have a gentleman that's actually in here called me and said, Martin, they're gonna take the property from the adjacent landowners. They didn't know that there was actually a fair negotiation, arbitration, appraisals. Mr. Bailey bought sweet corn from me just Saturday. We had a good discussion. I like him. He said, you want it? Buy it. Take it. Do whatever you want. For some reason, there's misinformation going out. And that's really sad. We've got a great community. Commissioner Kohlhoff, don't quote me on this, but you asked about how many homes in Golden Belt. You asked the commission. Is that correct?
I'm not sure. I think my question is how many home sites do we have out there, to be
Oh,
clear?
sites, okay. Well, let me go ahead and just give you some information. There's over 10 that have been built or being built right now. Okay, there's an apartment house going on. There's 16 lots that have been purchased to put in 8 duplexes. So there is families either relocating from within the city or moving into the city. Traffic will increase in that intersection. That's a fact. Kick the can down the road, spend more money in the future, or spend it now. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else who would like to address the commission on this item? Name, address, 3 minutes. Feel like a broken record.
Jessica Goodale, 1208.5 North Walnut, hopefully I'm the caboose. I'm the executive director for the Dixon County Economic Development. So I'm not trying to tell you which way to your opinion or your vote, but I just want to share that from the economic development perspective, in order for our tax base to widen, we do need to attract industries for us to improve, to better, to grow our economy. We do need to attract new industries, and ideally businesses that support our existing industries that we have in the area. And just to be very transparent, there's nothing in the works in our office, within our office for that industrial area. This is all just trying to get the ball rolling. We're just trying to build the infrastructure so that it's an appealing, as Ron said, a shovel-ready, attractive site to buy. So there is growth that's going to happen in the west. That's the area of our town that has the best opportunity to grow. And that's why we're doing the things right now to make it most attractive. So it's not appealing to a prospect economic driver to say, hey, we've got a 45-year-old road. Think about how much engineering has improved since 1980. So this design, Olson has shared with us, would not be approved by today's engineering standards. So that's just something that our office is going to have to work harder on to attract these businesses. So at some point, this is getting kicked down. This can is getting kicked down the road. At some point, we are going to have to address that. We're going to have to attack where our trucks are driving and look at new routes. And we have this additional residences, and we're going to have more traffic. As to Trevor's point, I like the idea of doing this now before that is full. And then we have to close that road and have all of them take, an alternative route. That's going to be quite an inconvenience. I don't like the idea of working really hard to attract industries to come to our community and then saying, actually, this route is going to be closed for the next year. And trying to find alternative routes for businesses and industries that we just work really hard to get to the community. So that's my thoughts on the economic development impact and how this is affecting that, kicking down the can We are a supportive partner of the city, no matter what. If you kick it down the road, we're just gonna work harder. So, you know, not to give you an opinion one way or the other, but this is how it affects office and the economic development for the city and county.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else that would like to address the commission on this item? Okay. Commissioner Witt, do you have anything else to add? Nope. Okay. I guess I'll turn to Ron. What kind of direction do you want? Is it
Well,
discussion
since it's a
item?
study session, you can't make any
Right.
decisions. I guess what we can do is bring this back for formal vote on what you want to do, whether to actually take action on a design or a concept drawing, or and move forward with the project, or return the money to the state.
Yeah, I think that as a regular business item. at
Yeah,
the next
we'll have
meeting.
that next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Next item is 12C, discussion regarding Dickinson County Rural Water District Number 2 water rates.
Commissioners, included in your packet are copies of the correspondence between the city and the Rural Water District Board when the city wanted to increase the water rate back in 2019. The city attorney will be able to help the governing body determine the approach and direction for this topic. I will turn it over to the governing body and the city attorney.
I will speak for us as a whole that I would certainly welcome your opinion now.
I'd be happy to speak to it and kind of introduce it if you'd like me to, or if you just want to talk amongst yourselves first, that'd be fine as well.
I'd like to hear your
Okay.
findings and thoughts on it first.
We've broken this up into a public discussion, and then we've given you an optional executive session. This is a legal matter. And depending on where the conversation goes, it would likely be appropriate to go into an executive session, but I'll leave that to you. And if I sense that it's going that direction, I'll speak up so that you are aware of that. But I think just generally, I thought it'd be helpful for everyone to hear the same background that leads to all of the documents that were in your packet. And I think to some extent, I'm probably telling many of you what you already know, but I think just kind of taking it from the top is helpful. So this goes back to 1998, when the city invested approximately $7.8 million for improvements to the water treatment plant and distribution system. And at that time, the city entered into an agreement in 1998 with Rural Water District Number 2. And as part of that agreement, the water district agreed to pay 11.25% of the total estimated cost of that improvement project, which amounted to $881,000 in cash. They just contributed that. The city financed the rest by issuing bonds, which I believe are still outstanding. And so that was approximately $7 million the city financed. So in exchange for the water district paying for 11.25%, the city agreed to allocate up to 11.25% of the production to the water district and to sell it to the water district. In that 1998 agreement, the city and the water district agreed on a rate structure that at the time in 1998 had multiple tiers, and I'll explain why that's no longer relevant here in a bit, but there were multiple tiers capping out with an upper tier that if it were hit, it was just a flat rate. It was a 40-year agreement, so it expires in October of 1938, and we are still subject to it. I'm sorry, what did I say?
No,
Okay, yeah, 2038. We have 14 years left. The rate structure at the time in the 1998 agreement indicated that that rate was representative of the rate schedule for all consumers of water, minus the capital costs attributable to the construction of the improvements, which the water district essentially prepaid at that time. So they were prepaying for the overall capital cost of making those construction improvements. And they're, in exchange for that, received a reduced rate relative to other water consumers in the city who were paying not only just the ongoing cost, but also their share of the construction costs, since that was financed over a period of time with bonds. There was language regarding potential modifications in the 1998 agreement that is still useful to talk about, but it's been amended out of the agreement. And it basically said that any increases or decreases to the negotiated rate structure would need to be based on a demonstrable increase or decrease in the city's costs of performing the water delivery that we had agreed to, which directly benefit the water district. And it specifically said that will not include increased costs of capitalization unless they directly benefit the water district. So by that, I think it meant increased improvement, potential future improvement costs to the water plant, unless it can be shown that those directly benefit the water district. That agreement remained in place until 1998, or excuse me, until 2011, untouched. In 2011, before all of our time, the city and the water district amended the agreement to do away with what was a relatively complicated rate structure. And it was replaced with a flat rate of $1.44 per 1,000 gallons. And it also anticipated that the city could make minor increases to that rate in both 2014 and 2015 if it wished to do so, just unilaterally. The city did not do that for whatever reason. So we are still subject to that $1.44 per 1,000 gallons rate that was put in place in 2011. At that time, the city and the water district made another amendment to the agreement that replaced all of the language governing how future rate changes would be made. Because remember, I mentioned that it would have to be based on a demonstrable increase or decrease in our costs of performing the water delivery. And it was replaced with a statement that the parties shall negotiate in good faith. And it was left at that. So we no longer have the benefit of a more objective formula to govern rate changes. In 2019, the previous city manager and finance director proposed a rate change to $1.90 per 1,000 gallons. And at that time, I believe they presented to the water district. There was some back and forth, I'm sure lots of other conversations. And it culminated with correspondence between the city, the water district's attorney, and then me and the water district's attorney. And we've included that correspondence in your packet. Ultimately, the water district was not agreeable to the $1.90 per 1,000 gallons. It got into the weeds a bit in terms of what was an appropriate rate, how should that be calculated, what costs that the city bears should be allocated to the water district and which ones should not. I think at the time, the information was pretty compelling that the city's costs of operating, ranging from labor to chemicals to repairs, have gone up. How you calculate that is relatively detailed, but it was pretty clear that that was occurring. And we outlined all of that in the correspondence with the water district and their attorney. Again, got into the weeds in terms of how do we account for water loss? How do we account for water that the city is using and not being sold privately? Should there be restrictions on revenue generated by any rate increase? Water district wanted to impose restrictions such that the city could only use that revenue, incremental increased revenue, for capital improvements as opposed to general overhead. And it culminated with, as you can see from the correspondence, with an impasse, essentially, in terms of them agreeing to the city's rate. Around that time, the previous city manager and previous finance director departed. There was a change, and we've talked about it from time to time since, but there has been no forward progress, at least on my end, in terms of picking that back up. and resuming either those negotiations or whatever the next step may be. I'll pause there. I think from there, we have legal options, which I would recommend we talk about in an executive session. But if anybody has any questions related to what I just covered, be happy to try to answer those or we can talk more about it.
Could you just clarify for the commission what would be appropriate to discuss in a public forum and what should not be?
Sure. Anything is always fair game in a public forum. However, matters related to attorney-client privilege, I would recommend we do not discuss in an open forum simply to avoid an argument that we have waived those. It would be appropriate in an executive session for me to give you legal advice or you to ask questions related to receiving legal advice, which would include my analysis of the contract, strengths, weaknesses, options, et cetera.
How much time would you need?
I always get this wrong, but I would say 15 minutes.
I'd be agreeable to. But, and since we're in study session, what's a good way for us to proceed into executive session in a way that's appropriate?
Sure. It would be the exact same way that we always do. It is still an open public meeting. We've just agreed through our rules that we're not going to take any action. So there will be no action, but otherwise it would be a matter of making a motion.
Right, I will do so. I move the city commission recesses an executive session for 15 minutes to discuss the city's agreement with the rural water district number 2 and issues related to water rates changed thereunder based upon the need for consultation with an attorney for the public body, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client privilege relationship pursuant to KSA 45-7319B2. The open meeting will resume in this meeting at, let's say, 6:40.
That's 7 minutes.
Or, yeah, or
6:50?
6:50.
6.
Do you have a 17?
Oh, yes, 6:50. Here we go.
I'll second.
Thanks.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Do we have any further commission discussion? Seeing none, would you roll call vote? Commissioner Meisenberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller, Vice Mayor Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Witt,
Yes.
Commissioner Koloff,
Aye.
myself, yes, motion carries. We are in executive session. We will now resume the regular study session from executive session. No action was taken. I would now consider a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Do we have any further commission discussion? Seeing none, would you roll call vote? Vice Mayor Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Witt,
Yes.
Commissioner Koloff.
Aye.
Commissioner Meisenberg,
Yes.
myself, yes, motion carries. We're adjourned.